Hello, welcome to Truck Stop Murder and True Crime Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Howard, and thank you for all joining me. Hope everybody's doing well. And if you're a return listener, thank you. If you're a new listener, let me tell you what this show's about. I talk about my OTR truck driver for Prima Express again. I took a 3 month hiatus for a while, and I'm back. But I spend a lot of time at truck stops. I have to do a 10-hour break every day, so that's kind of like my home. So I talk about the truck stops I stop at and a murder that happens close by. So if this is something you enjoy, then this is it for you. If you're a traveler and you want to know what these truck stops are like before you get there, like, hey, I'm traveling through the area. I might have to stop at that. They have what food? Oh, yep. There you go. So that's for me. I don't know how entertaining this is for non-truck drivers, but hopefully you find at least the murder entertaining, but the truck stop is part of it. And of course, this show does it can get graphic. I do have a potty mouth, as people, I cuss a lot, and the show does revolve murder, rape, torture, and things around the murder. So that's your warning. So back to the truck stop. So this truck stop brought me right now. I'm in my yard in Joliet, Illinois. But the murder happened in Lampeter Township, Pennsylvania, and the truck stop I'm going to cover is Rutter's Farm Market 34. Now, I have not been to this truck stop in a while since the company that I work for does not travel this route very often. It stays up North Pennsylvania. But my other companies that I work with did go through. They were more versatile, where they were more OTR everywhere. Where this place here has specifics, the places they go to, then return a little back to the Chicago area. This is where our main hub's at in Joliet, Illinois, right down the street from the old Joliet prison. Which, if you do TikTok, I'm right now it's Gary Howard 6886, but I'm going to change it to sceneries, cemeteries, and sites where I really started going into where you see me go into cemeteries, different headstones of just unknown people, or mainly sceneries of my travels around the United States, and sites, different things, murder sites, crime sites, whatever. If something happened at this place, and I could get my truck in it, I'm going to be doing a TikTok video of it. Of course, I'm on YouTube as well. If you want to watch, just no automated animated videos, but anyhow, let's get back to the truck stop. Rutgers Farm Market. Now, this is the one that I've really rarely seen outside of Pennsylvania area. I might be wrong, but then again, I have really researched it to depth of where all the Rutgers farms, maybe New York as well, and like the Northeast. Has 66 reviews with a 4.6 rating, so not too bad. It's on Pennsylvania 23. The physical address to this place is 370 West Main Street, Leola, Pennsylvania, not too far from East Lampeter, where this crime that I'm about to cover talks it happened at. So let's see. As of a day ago, they still haven't updated these things. There's a lot of spots as a day ago. 15 spots there. Some people claim that there's one person claims there's only 5 spots there, but there's 15 spots, ATM, and overnight. It says overnight parking on. All this information I'm giving you is from Trucker's Path. So if you're a truck driver and you want to know where to park, if it's available, try out Trucker's Path. It has all kinds of information on that. So let's go back. Let's see. If you do need at this place, fuel looks like it's kind of expensive. Everywhere else I've seen it's been under $4, but here it is $4.05. And DEF right now is 339. So that's for your truck. So I know some pickup trucks is actually taking DEF right now. So there you go. Let's see if you're traveling through this area, maybe on truck or car, and you decide to stop at this location, and you want to get a bite to eat. Well, they probably have the regular hot dogs and stuff like that, as all truck drivers stops do. But they have a Baskin Robbins there, which is ice cream and frozen yogurt, which for some reason has a 1-star review. How can you mess up ice cream? But Dunkin' Donuts also probably attached to it with a 4-star review. And then right by it, all this is from a quarter mile from this truck stop is a Funk's Restaurant, it's an American restaurant, or Food's Garden, which is a Chinese restaurant. Then there's an Italian bakery called La Terra Bakery and the Pasta Bar. So pasta and Danishes you can have there. And then lastly, that was a people like the bakery, 4-star Chinese food, 4-star, and Sharp Shopper. There's a little grocery store that's by there too, but that's at a 0.2 miles. So, but that's it. There's other places if you want to travel over a quarter mile, like half a mile. There's a pizza place, cafe, grocers. So let's see what reviews from Trucker Path people think of this place. A lot of people really like it, so I'm not going to go. Like I said, 4.6 review total, food 4.7, parking 4.5, 4.3, 4.4. Now, on the general information on this, it just says this spot does not allow travelers to park overnight for truckers only. But I bet you if you go in there and ask them, yeah, you mind if I stop out there for a while? As you see some of the reviews, you will hear that. One says, good little, first one right off the back, Hannibal State says, good little truck stop, clean and lots of treats here. Now, Kinabish, that's her name, Tina, says, worst food ever and pricey. They have 5 parking spots. Overall, it's a tidy little store, but do yourself a favor and order out. Which I will post a picture on my social media of this truck stop, as I always do, like a Google Earth picture of it. And you see that this woman is wrong. There is more than 5. And Highway Honey, I guess she posted something about the sign outside, but remember I told you about the car? She said, never mind the previous review. Guess she deleted it. The sign says 1 hour parking on one side and asked, that is only if you drop the trailer. It's fine for overnight parking looking to do your 10-hour reset. It's a nice spot. There is some other restaurants and Dunkin' Donuts within walking distance. It says super clean. Let's see what Big D33A says. One major Kivet, great new spot, great location, easy in and out, restaurants, bars, all around, Uber available, strip club, up down the road. There you go. I didn't know that. And in all uppercase, you can only on pay park ONPY park here 1 hour, and that's if you're a customer. 1 hour. Truck stops do need to send a message so they'll stop doing this. Well, clearly he needed to talk with. That was two. They're both for two. Hollywood Honey and take her advice and go in and ask. They would let him stay. And then 4-star review from C10R22A70. Great food and workers, clean store. And here's a 3-star review from Highway Joy. Staff is polite. The food is great. Ladies' restroom was clean. I asked to be I asked to be sure if I could stay overnight. The cashier said yes, but the max is 12 hours, so you have to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning. I arrived at 1700, but then said if you have to stay longer, you have to change parking spots. And she says she can't leave. She says I don't have to be stay longer than have to change. Don't. She says she don't get it. However, I will stay until 7 and see what they set up. And I guarantee you they probably just left her alone. They get too busy. They're not there to run truckers. Everything else pretty much 5-star. Talking about any updates, parking clean, nice place. So it's a decent place to go to. Extremely surprised, the clean, spacious area, nice store and fast. So yeah, well, here's one more. Okay to park. Food is not cheap and it's not that nasty. There is a discount grocery store next door. So that was the grocery store. But yeah, there you go. There's Rutter's Farm. If you find yourself going through there, that's what you eat and that's what you encounter. But like I said, most people seem to like this place. So and if I don't remember being there. I know I've been there, but most Rutter's Farms are not too bad. I enjoy them. They're usually clean country style, but I think it's northeast. So what do I have for you today is the case. What I have for you today is the murder of Laura Slow. Now this is kind of like I did an episode of Shonda Shear, which I have to say this funny story first. There's one girl, as I was on there, I remember seeing on a Dr. Phil show, and I kept talking to my wife. I think there's another show that's similar to the Shonda Shear and this and that, but I can't think of it. But it was that show. So I was like, what am I talking about? I actually covered that case and I forgot about her name. I can't even think of her name right now. Blonde hair girl with short hair that I talked about. What? Was unimportant with this show right now. She had nothing to do with Laura's show. So let's talk about Laura's show. On December 20th, 1991, her ma Hazel had gotten a phone from her guidance counselor from the high school that she went to. Said she had to meet her the next day. Well, actually, it was the ninth. That would have been the 19th of December. She called, and Laura don't know why she has to go talk to her guidance because she hasn't done nothing wrong. So that early that morning, she had left while Laura was getting ready for school and went there. And she's a patient woman, so she went to the office. The guidance counselor never showed up. But on the phone, she asked what it was about, but she wouldn't discuss it on the phone. So she didn't know what she was there for. So that's why maybe it was important. So she waited for about 30 minutes. She finally said, "I got things to do. I can't." So she went back home. Where going into she lived in an apartment complex with her youngest daughter, the one daughter Laura. That her and her husband had previously had separated, divorced. So one of the neighbors they lived on the second floor. One of the neighbors below them, stopped her before she got in her house and said, "Hey, there was a lot of racket going on, slamming doors and like that." And she goes, "Well, she's a teenager. She's probably listening to music, dancing, whatever teenager girls do. She's probably doing. I'm not concerned about it." So she goes up there, opens the door, sees all the lights are on, but she don't see Laura. She checked Laura's bathroom first, and that she went in the bedroom, and that's when she came upon the horrible sight that no parent wants to see. Is her daughter laying in a pool of blood with a rope wrapped around her throat, fatally wounded. So she didn't know her throat what was wounded, but she went and got a pair knife, and cut the throat off. Cut her. She didn't know her mom didn't cut her throat. Cut the rope off her neck, and that's when she realized the extent of the wounds was severe. So she held her. She went call 911, came back and held her in her arms by her mother. Police there, she said that she was saying Michelle did it. So yeah, police later recorded that Show had received a 5-inch gash to the throat, a stab wound that punctured her lung, and another that grazed her spine, several wounds to the head, and a number of defensive wounds. So she was fighting for her life. Hazel Show was, of course, I said she knew she was not home at the text. She was at the county counselor waiting for, come to find out, that was a false call. There's ruse to get her out. If I said that name right, it was a decoy to get her out. So they made a false statement, says she had just to get Laura's mom out of the house. So having been dumped by the killers into going to the high school to speak to a guidance counselor, Show's mother reported to the police that her daughter had named Lambert as Lisa. Well, she said Michelle did it, and this is Lisa Michelle Lambert. This is somebody that has been stalking her and giving her whole family a hard time because they knew right. She knew right away. It's Lisa Michelle Lambert. She's been calling us, pranking us. We've been having issues with her for a while. So right away, they police arrested Lambert, which they found also with her boyfriend Lawrence Junkin and Tabitha, Lambert's friend Tabitha Buck at a local bowling alley that late, the next day, later that day actually. Initial statements from the three claimed that Junkin had dropped Lambert and Buck off at Show's house where the two girls murdered Show. Junkin stated that he had not participated in the murder, that and that while he was aware of Lambert and Buck's plan to cut Show's hair off with a knife, the whole plan was that they're going to go in there as a prank and cut her hair off, and he made to make her look stupid. But he did provide them with the alibi as well as helping to dispose of the evidence. Lambert and Buck would later recant their initial statements, with Lambert claiming that the abuse of Junkin encouraged her to harass and assault Show during this whole time. But his statement was, like I said, he said that he dropped the girls off at a certain location, went to the local McDonald's, which was later corroborated by some witnesses, waited about 15, 20 minutes, and ended up going back. And he had trouble finding her at first, but when he did find her, they had the knife, they had all the items, which beforehand Michelle Lambert actually went with Yokin to a store to buy gloves and a rope and things that was out that they used that day. Like I said, well, he states that it was just a prank, but I don't know. But yeah, let's talk about Lambert initially began harassing Show in 1991 after learning that Show had briefly dated Youngkin over the summer. Lambert and Junkin had a previous relationship, but had reportedly not been dating during the time Junkin was dating Show. Show and Junkin had gone out on a few dates, probably about 10 days. I think they were together, with Show reporting to her mother that Junkin date raped her. Shortly after his final date with Show, Junkin resumed dating Lambert again, who was pregnant with his child at the time. Reported to be abusive, obviously jealous of Show. Michelle. So Lambert proceeded to harass Show in various ways, such as appearing at Show's job and verbally assaulting her. Witnesses reported Lambert had expressed an intent to scare Laura, then hurt her, then slit her throat. She was making all kinds of threats about this. Lawrence Junkin, let's talk about Lawrence Junkin. A 20-year-old at the time of the murder, Junkin admitted to driving. This is what he said, Lambert and Buck. So he is talking to the police at the time when he arrested him. He admitted to driving Lambert and Buck to Show's home of the morning murder and taking them from the scene after it occurred. After clean up the evidence, and so after his arrest, he cooperated with the prosecutors, testified against Lambert and Buck at their trial in exchange for, listen to this, 1 year prison. So he told them where all the clothes was at that she was wearing, the bloodstains clothes, where the night before where they threw where the Susquehanna River is where they threw the murder weapon, where Tabitha at the time remained silent through it all. So she, on the advice of her lawyers, and because she lawyered up real quick, so on the advice of her parents and her lawyer, she did not admit. But Buck admitted it. She did say one thing. She did admit knocking on Show's door when she and Lambert arrived at the home. Said on to her, this is her lawyer speaking, not her. Said on Show's legs and prevented her from leaving the room, but said it was Michelle Lambert who killed her. So, as the trial of Lambert began, Buck's attorney filed a petition for their client to be tried as a juvenile. Buck's attorney, a request that is granted, would not only take the death penalty off the table, but could have potentially gotten Buck released as little as 4 years. Buck requested was filed in early July 1992. By the end of the month, her defense team withdrew it. In exchange, prosecutors gave her the intent to seek the death penalty against her. But Buck's trial moved to Easton, so they were trying to get the death penalty on her. But yeah, Buck's trial moved to Easton. The state Supreme Court moved Buck's trial out of Lancaster to Easton, to a different Lehigh County. There's so much press involved around this. She would never got, cited the intense media coverage of the crime it had received. So then October 1st, 1992, Buck, after an 8-day trial, Buck is found guilty of second-degree murder by the Lehigh County jury, which deliberated for about 3 hours. Words deliberated. Reports of the trial indicated that the jurors, prosecutors, and even Show's mother weren't sure whether if Lambert or Buck who fatally stabbed Show. They knew one of the girls did, but they weren't for sure. Believed that both Buck and Lambert participated in the crime. So what happened to Buck? Buck was sentenced to be gone with you, young lady. Life in prison without parole. Her attorneys immediately applied for, appeal the verdict. Beginning the appeals process later lasted 3 years. Ultimately, of course, I'm having a hard time to speak already. But then again, this is actually, I want to say, this is actually about the third time I've tried to record in this. I think what helped me is I need a co-host, a reliable co-host that I could, because it's easier. I could tell these stories. I tell these stories to my wife all the time, and it's no problem. But here I'm just sitting there staring at the screen, talking loud. If anybody has any advice so I could prove this, I am always willing. Give me negative feedback about this. Any feedback is feedback. I watched where Peter Criss was actually, some dude tried to say he was Peter Criss. And the original Peter Criss talked to Gene Simmons, and Gene Simmons said, don't worry about it. He said, there is no such thing as bad publicity. All publicity is bad. And the same thing goes here. I will take all criticism. Now, I've gotten some criticism that's ridiculous. But if you want to criticize me, at least have a way I could fix it. Don't just say, you sound like a babbling fool or whatever. Tell me, well, this is what you're doing wrong, and maybe you should try this. And no, I'm not. If you come at me with stop podcasting, I'm just going to delete it. No, that's not the thing. My wife enjoys my podcasts, and I come to the conclusion, this is for you, Desra. I created all this for my lovely wife, Desra Glover. Love you. Ultimately, let's back to the story. Ultimately, all these were denied. So Lambert, Buck, and Junkin was each tried for the murder of Laura Slow. Junkin agreed to testify against Lambert, stating that she and Buck had slit Show's throat after the two had punctured one of the Show's lungs. A pair of sweatpants had been worn during the crime were entered in evidence by the prosecution as Show's blood was present on them. Another exhibit was a letter from Lambert to Junkin in which Lambert states, I know I'm not an angel, but Lawrence, I never got mad enough to kill her. So this was all going on the trial of Lisa Michelle Lambert. So she was saying first Lambert was convicted July 20th, 1992 of first-degree murder and criminal conspiracy in the death of Show. Buck was convicted of similar charges, and both women were sentenced to you two be gone with you. You two, young lady, go join your friend and life in prison without the possibility of parole. So Lambert was initially incarcerated, but what was she saying? She said that her initial defense was that when they went in there, she just wanted to scare her, and that's when they knocked on the door, and that's when Tabitha went crazy and was stabbing her. Now, if you watch, I got a lot of this information I got from Dateline. There's a show on Dateline about this hour, a lot of information where they actually interview her, and I'm gonna say she don't seem like she's a very beautiful woman. I'll say that, but she don't seem like she's very intelligent. She don't seem like she's with it, you know, on her interviews. But you be the judge of that. But yeah, Lambert initially incarcerated at the Cameron Springs State Correctional Institution, while Buck was sent to Musey State Correctional Institute. Junkin received a lesser sentence. Of his testimony was granted parole in 2003, but determined. But you say, well, 2003, that's longer than the 92 when it happened. But when Michelle had wrote Junkin a 29, which I looked all over. I can't find this. I want to know what all the questions are. Some of them were, you think if I did the crime, I would get a lesser sentence? He said yes. He said all kinds of stuff. But determined that Junkin had committed perjury during his testimony, and his plea deal was withdrawn. He said, "Screw you, asshole." He was tried and convicted of third-degree murder and received, you asshole, be gone with you, sir, 10 to 20 years in prison, term from 92. He served 12 years in prison before being paroled. Yes, in 2004 on his third attempt to parole, though. So he's out, and the two girls are still in at this moment. Lawrence Junkin where is he at now? And tell you what, he's still around that, in the same bowling alley. So if anybody living there and want to go fuck off, or maybe. No, I'm better not, because I get in trouble if I ask you to do something. I'm not. You just leave him alone. Do what you think is right. Read between lines. Now, freed from prison, living in an area, he has become a good bowler, and on Facebook, 302 friends on Facebook. So Whitehead said that she receives occasional restitution as Mrs. She remarried. By the way, I'll get into her story. Laura's mom remarried. That's why her last name is Whitehead. She receives restitution payment from. So he was ordered to pay $12,000, which he still owes $7,000. So 1992, Lambert appealed her 92 conviction, and in 97 appeared before a federal judge for rights of habeas corpus. If you don't know what habeas corpus is, and I actually learned this, I've always knew something. It was some kind of appeal process, but I didn't know what type it was. But habeas corpus is when you go to a federal judge where you exhausted all your state means, saying you are wrongfully convicted, and the judge will look at it and see what it is, and then he'll decide if he wants to take it or not. And what I've learned on this case is a lot of times, if you're found guilty on fact, they usually will not. The fact is that the gun's on your possession, your DNA's there, her DNA's on you, and there's all kinds of facts that you did it. A lot of times they'll just say, don't waste our time with this mess. But if it's, found guilty of law, and you could prove that, the police overexerted their authority by entering your house without proper cause, without search warrant, stuff like that, you could use that, and maybe you might get an appeal. So she wrote a letter stating all this information, how she was wrongly convicted, and everything. So U.S. District Judge Stuart Dalzell presided over. She got the letter and he sent it to a lawyer, where he actually presided over the trial. Lambert's lawyer claimed that there were several inconsistencies from the evidence and testimony given in early trial. That Lambert was innocent. Lambert claimed that she had been framed by the Lancaster police in order to keep her from coming forward with charges that they had gang raped her. Let me tell you right now, this woman says everybody rapes her. That's the thing. Her lies and the way she manipulates people, it's just, I think that's what really got her convicted. She said three police officers had gang raped her, even though, well, I'll get to that. And so evidence provided at the retrial included the sweatpants entered in the night 2 trial proceeding, was well as correspondence between Junkin and Lambert, the 29 questions. According to Zell, there was at least 25 inconsistencies in which the prosecutors and police had bungled the case, like improperly dealing with evidence and witnesses, entering perjured testimony, and so on, among the problems that he cited. There was like 200 pieces of evidence the prosecution did not admit and 60 items. Prosecutors first turned over to the defense edited soundless tape of the crime investigation. Only when the defense finally obtained a full copy did the defense learn that it showed the police had found the bag in which Michelle said she had thrown Butch's bloody shoes in. And the collection of photos that the investigators shared with the defense omitted those that showed blood spatter patterns and footprints that corroborated with Michelle's story. So they're just keeping everything. And that's what she's saying. They're doing it on purpose to keep her, put her in jail so she don't narc out these police officers who had raped her. Bloody speckled sweatpants supposedly worn by Michelle during the murder and produced in the trial seemed to have been replaced with another larger and bloodless pair in the hearing with Judge Denzel. A defense expert in forensic pathology and had shocked the defense lawyers by agreeing that the prosecution also during the 92, I forgot to mention this, during the 92, they said that there was no way Laura could have said her name because she had a really deep cut through her, on her throat where she would not have been able to talk. So lawyers agreed with the prosecution that it was possible that Laurie had been able to name her killer despite the extent of her throat wound. So he said he could do it. It turned out regularly testified for Lancaster prosecution, that's his name, and making more and more money doing so, and been interviewed by them inappropriately. New experts Rainville consulted insisted that Laura's severe carotid artery would have made it impossible for her to speak. So that is a big thing. Did she say Laura? Some people say that there's no way she could have. Some, was pretty much the defense is saying that there's a possibility. They got her expert said that she could have said Lisa Michelle Lambert's name, well, Michelle, and the defense said there's no way. So it was kind of back and forth. However, the U.S. Attorney's Office and State Supreme Court did not uncover prosecutorial misconduct, so they didn't find nothing. Denzel's decision provoked outrage in Lancaster County. And during this time, he also, her mother, Laura Slow's mother, said she actually probably she thinks she saw them there. And other witnesses that was held back that they seen Buck, Lawrence Junkin at the place. But Philadelphia, so in Philadelphia and across the country, acknowledging holds that damaged the case in one thing, pronounced it innocent and forbidden. So yeah, they found her innocent. He just threw away the initial guilty and pronounced it innocent and forbidden retrial in the site. Critics call this an example of active judge setting a dangerous precedent that wondered. My notes are crazy. They wondered how Denzel could be so easily swayed by this manipulative, dangerous young woman and how he could rapidly brush away some of the strongest evidence in favor of Michelle's guilt. Her co-conspirators, which was, I said, Tabitha and Lawrence. So he overturned the murder conviction April 15th, 1997, citing the prosecutorial misconduct had resulted in incorrect ruling. Denzel also barred the state of Pennsylvania from retrying Lambert. Denzel's ruling was laid, and this is where I'm going to get that. And you think it's over. They set her free. You guys are bumbling idiots. Y'all don't know what you're doing. You screw this whole thing up from start to finish. Set this woman free. So yeah, but you think that's it, and on the video you think, well, and of course it don't end here either. But yeah, Denzel's ruling was later overturned by something I learned too on this show. I've learned a few things on this thing, and there's a few firsts on this episode that I'll get to. On January 1980, a federal appeals panel that stated Lambert had not yet exhausted her appeals in the state court, and Lambert was taken back to prison. So 10 days she was out there partying, have a good time, but she didn't go through all the process that the state, you know, requires you to do on an appeal. She just skipped. It'll be like when I was in the army, I go straight to the president. I skipped the sergeant major and everybody. It don't work that way. You have to go through different appeals, which I was somewhat aware of, but I didn't know it was a mandatory thing that you have to go through. So what I did was I tried to look it up and see what you had to go through, but every state's different. But Pennsylvania court structure is stated that all Pennsylvania's courts are part of the unified judicial system of Pennsylvania. There are three basic levels to the Pennsylvania court: minor courts, courts of common pleas, statewide intermediate appeals court, which are called Commonwealth Court, and the Superior Court and Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. Exercises all authorities over all court. That's here's the Unified Judicial System homepage presents simple diagram here, which I'm gonna go over. The Supreme Court, Supreme Court. I'm gonna get these confused. The Supreme and Superior Court. Supreme Court of Pennsylvania is the ultimate authority on matters brought before the lower courts. The court hears direct appeals from lower courts. Why am I saying that crazy? Lower courts decisions and answers requests for intervention of lower courts proceedings. Now you have the intermediate appellate courts. There are two statewide appellate courts in Pennsylvania: the Supreme Court and the Commonwealth Court. The Superior Court handles appeals in criminal and civil cases of the courts of common pleas. The Commonwealth Court handles original civil actions brought by and against the Commonwealth and appeals from state agencies' decision. Courts of common pleas is kind of like higher to lower. Courts of common pleas are trial courts which hear appeals in cases from minor courts. Such cases before courts of common pleas are heard by juries and some are heard by the judge. By the way, I did not state this when Buck went to court. She waived. Both girls waived the jury. They went straight judge. So minor courts, where this all happened first, Pennsylvania. Well, I don't know if this is considered mild murder, but it's probably the lowest level where they first go to. Pennsylvania's minor courts are the magistratal district courts and the Philadelphia Municipal Court, and special problem-solving courts throughout the state. Minor courts addresses rather serious crimes cases go to the Court of Commons, pleas, preliminary hearings, and setting bail, exempt in murder or voluntary manslaughter causes, and decides minor cases. So what I'm hearing is you go through minor courts, the state, the appeals court, where the common courts but either way, she did not do all this stuff. She wrote a letter too, so it was still going through the appeals part of the state, but she did not. She wrote a letter, and so they said it should never been there. So after Denzel ruling was overturned by the federal court system, debated whether to keep Lambert in jail or uphold Lambert's verdict. So that's where my computer went off on me. Appeal for hearing. Sorry, I'm not going to edit that out. Like I tell people, what I do is what you get, and if you don't like it, then I guess you can get. But because I don't edit, I really don't have time to do that. I wish I'd had time to do this full time. But yeah, after ruling was over, Lambert filed for appeal. A hearing over the second overturning the verdict was denied. In February 1998, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court returned the case of Lancaster County court system, stating that Lambert must first take up her claims there. The third trial took place in May 1998, with a federal appeals court temporarily freeing, like I said, he was free in Lambert Under the belief that she could win the case, Judge Lawrence F. Sagel oversaw the trial, which was the first judge that I believe was the first judge who found her guilty in the first place. Various witnesses were called to testify against Lambert, including the detective that had overseen the 1991 murder case, as well as Lambert's accomplice. And this is when Buck actually first really started opening up. She was really never vocal before until now. So the detective's testimony denied allegation to evidence that had been tampered. They said no, that was Lambert. Now this is when she changes her story again. She's constantly changed. You see, this is the thing with her is I don't know why, but she has constantly changed her stories about what happened. First time she said she just went to scare him. Second time she said Tabitha did it. Now Lambert testified that Junkin was participating in the murders. Choking Shaw, she also stated that she had attempted to help defend Laura against the other two perpetrators, and that she had tried to pull the victim out of the apartment, tried to pull Laurie out of that. Evidence from the 97 retrial was presented again. The defense argued that Lambert had not participated in the act, that she had been sent out of the room by Junkin, and that Junkin had unquestionably obeyed Junkin's orders to be due to battered woman syndrome. Because a lot of people say he was very abusive to her, which I don't know. I know going by what happened with with Laura, I kind of maybe I believe that. But yeah, previous boyfriend Lambert confirmed that he had witnessed Junkin yank yank Lambert into a room, at which point Yankin began yelling at her. Also testified that he seen a police officer who matched one of the descriptions Lambert gave of the allegation of rapes, given a threatening glare at a local festival, so they look at her. But here's the thing about the rape allegations that Lambert gave to the police. One of the officers was not even there. He was out on his honeymoon and had, you know, show proof that he was at a hotel, everything about it. So that was full shit. Seems like she's just trying to claw at everything. She also stated that also Lambert's lawyers presented correspondence between Lambert and Junkin, where they claimed to prove that Lambert had been involved in the murder and that Junkin had asked her to lie for him, which comes back to the 29 questions. They also questioned whether or not Shaw had been able to speak to her mother after her death with her throat cut. They alleged that Shaw had actually written out the initials of her murders, which was Buck and Junkin said B and Y, so she wrote it. Now she could speak, but they said it was hiding that. Of course, Buck denied these claims. Buck said that what happened was testified that Lambert had actually participated in the murder, that she had instructed Buck to wear the hair up and not to wear makeup or fingernail polish. Junkin was later brought to the stand, and the sweatpants that had been alleged to be in the trial of 97 was produced. Junkin was ordered to hold the sweatpants against his body, which were to show that too short for him, as well as being made a different fabric from the garment, entered into evidence of 1992 trial. A relative of Junkin provided a poem written by Lambert in jail that described the murder. Crime scene expert also testified that no evidence showed written any initials in her blood, so there's no evidence of the blood written. They tried to prove that. And other evidence discovered that the crime did not corroborate with Lambert's story. And also, during this time, they had witnesses who said that during the crime, they actually saw two women at the same age leaving the place, which Junkin was over 6 foot tall, and the two women were like about 5'8", 5'9", which would not put Junkin there. Like I said, also at McDonald's, they also said they saw him there. But also, what really brought the retrial in 97 was that her mom, Laurie Slow's mom, stated that, and witness said they saw Lawrence Junkin at the apartment the day of the murder. But maybe they were just saw somebody that looked similar to her, but that's why the retrial, and she was released. So in August 1998, George Stengel announced his verdict. The same judge that was proceeding over the first trial stated that he would uphold the original guilty verdict against Lambert, that even if he believed the story, that they would still be guilty of first-degree murder as an accomplice. Federal judge Auntie Brody later upheld the verdict. Lambert attempted to appeal in 1998. This judge in 2003 to bring the case to the Supreme Court of the United States, but was rejected both times. she exhausted all her appeals in 2005. So little wonder then. So the Judge Stiegel's verdict was also different from George Denzel's. He decided against Michelle, setting out her thoughts in a lengthy, scratchy opinion paper. And Michelle be wild and highly questionable, the mockery of the defense, and it's just a mess all around. Here's how he counted some of the major points. This is his theory on it. The Riverborn, where they found the shoe was rain filled. Suggested prosecutors were hidden was half rotted, and apparently they had been at the mercy of elements for several years. Police ignored it because it was obviously not the shoe they were looking for. Similar, a big a bag that the defense argued was wrongfully overlooked was ignored because it was a stray trash bag and not relevant to the case at the time. Additional photos that supported Michelle's story wouldn't have changed the outcome at all. So all that stuff, because she still stated that she was there. She said that they went in there. She wanted to talk to her, and that's when Tabitha started stabbing her. But when she left, that's when she ran into Lawrence Junkin, where he told him where he went in and told her to just go away and close the door, and that's when they killed Laurie Slow. So regarding the alleged swap sweatpants, the blood evidence, Stengel simply declared that it would be silly to try to such a ruse, that the size questionable could have easily been settled by having Michelle try them on, which she never did. A small amount of blood, experts said, would likely have deteriorated over time. Experts then argue with each other to the extent of Laura's wounds and the likelihood of her being able to name the killer. If nothing else, she may have been able to mouth the killer with her before dying, and her mother could have understood some kind of reading her lips. So it might not have been audible, but she could have read her lips. So there you go. Furthermore, Michelle alleged gang rape by the Lancaster, which I'm going to get to. The Lancaster police was connected to a cover-up set up by police. The first officer on scene, even though knew about such a rape, could not have come up with an erratic plan to eliminate Michelle. So that was nonsense. So federal judge Anthony Brody agreed with Stiegel and upheld his decision, but the damage had been done, and it wasn't just the Show family, but it was Michelle's. The Show family destroyed their only daughter, get killed. But yeah, now since she exhausted all her appeals, she's not going anywhere. This is where. So if you want a breakdown of how everything went for Michelle Lambert, in '92, Ms. Lambert filed post-verdict motion claiming that her conviction was against the weight of the evidence. In '94, the physical findings of the crime scene, the testimony of trial of the defendant, and trial testimony of Hazel Show, the history of ill will between defendant and the victim, and circumstantial evidence developed at trial all led to the conclusion that the defendant was guilty of the murder of Laurie Show. So in '96, Lambert filed a lawsuit claiming, here's about the claim that, I'm not going to say his name, had attacked her 6 times during '94, one of the guards, and the official had followed her. Further, that she was videotaped during a strip search. He was convicted of aggravated incident assault and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. So actually, his name was James Ecker, Eiche. So he was sentenced and found guilty of this. So maybe she was right about that. Lambert in '97, of course, Lambert was freed briefly when a federal judge ruled that Lambert was actually innocent. A federal appeals court overturned the ruling, and Lambert was returned to prison. The court found that Lambert had brought her case to the federal court prematurely without exhausting her opportunities for appeal in Pennsylvania. In '97, Lisa Lambert's appeal denied. '98, conviction upheld. Lambert's claim that she was framed by prosecutors was rejected. '98, request for relief during appeal denied. In 2003, 8 law enforcement officers declared the misconduct in Lambert's case. Nope. In 2005, appeal to Supreme Court. Supreme Court refused to hear the case. She was incarcerated in Clinton, New Jersey. Lambert has exhausted all her appeals. She will continue to serve her life in jail. 2007, the Lancaster judge was determined that a civil lawsuit filed by state correctional institution Cameron Springs inmate Lisa Michelle against administrators at the facilities for alleging failing to prevent her from being sexually abused by employees was scheduled to be heard by a jury. 2007, the Pennsylvania state had decided to settle a lawsuit brought by convicted killer Laura Michelle, who claimed that she was sexually assaulted by guards at the Cameron Springs State Correctional Institute. The civil lawsuit had been placed on hold until Lambert had exhausted all her appeals in the criminal case. The 35,000 she ended up getting. 35 will go to pay for court costs, restitution, and if anything is left, that will go. By the way, I failed to mention when she was in jail, she gave birth to her daughter, and her parents, adopted her pretty much. So they will go to Lambert's parents. The remaining whatever's left after all that, with Lambert's parents, who is raising her daughter, her and Lawrence's daughter, which they're no longer together. So, November 2017, Buck receives a new sentence and parole eligibility. Hear this. 2012 decision of the Supreme Court deemed life sentences for juvenile offenders is unconstitutional, which allows Buck to receive a hearing for a new sentence. The decision also made Buck eligible for parole. She was 17 at the time, still going to school, so Lancaster County judge ordered Buck's new sentence to be 28 years to life. Since Buck had already served 26, she became 6 years in jail at the time. She was eligible for parole in 2020. Prosecutors argued Buck should have served at least 30 years before becoming eligible for parole, pointing at the crimes, devastation of Show's surviving family and the community. Assistant District Attorney Susan Moyer, Moyer, also said Buck never expressed remorse of what she did. So during the hearing, Coach, they have the family members and everything. They want to know, Coach, of course, they want to be there to see what's going on with their daughter's murderer. Show's mother read a statement at the hearing. Her statement was, Laura died a horrible life for a reason I will never understand. She read, why did you agree to come to our house that morning? She asked Buck. Buck testified for about 15 minutes. When the judge asked about the crime, Buck said she can't imagine how Laura and her family feel about the resentencing, but she didn't say really nothing about the crime and about what she did and any remorse or nothing like that. But here we go. August 2019, Buck is granted parole. Yes, Tabitha Buck got out of jail. The State Board of Probation granted Buck's parole, listing her earliest possible release date was December 21st. She is barred from residing in or traveling in Lancaster County, prohibited from contacting Show's family, or required to take psychiatric medicine, psychiatric for medicine for her well-being, and that was prescribed by a doctor. As part of her terms and release, Buck, whose name also appears as Tabitha Buck in the documents, which that's her name, of course, over the year since her arrest, cannot travel, like I already said that. Lancaster District Attorney Officer spokesman Brett Harmon issued a following statement from District Court Craig Steeman on Buck's parole. The resentencing of juvenile murders has been one of the most difficult and gut-wrenching tasks we've ever had to handle. Our system told victims' families their case was over, and in many cases for decades. The courts ruled, slow down. The courts ruled, and we followed the law, but that is no way diminishes the added emotion trauma this process causes those who have already suffered. Most of all, we must remember the innocent victims whose lives were taken have no ability to appeal or receive any lighter sentence, which is the real victims of this. So, and what happened after this? So there you go. Like I said, Buck got released, and Tabitha's released, going on with her life. Lisa Michelle Lambert still in prison. Lawrence Junkin is out of jail. So what happened after? So there's some things changed. Because this started with the stalking. So what came out of this anti-stalking activism, after that's where her mom Hazel became anti-stalking activism, which doing good things for her community. After her daughter's death in 1981, Hazel Show started campaigning for stronger anti-stalking laws in Pennsylvania. Show's murder helped push forward anti-stalking laws legislation which new law signed in effect of June of '93. So they're really getting strict on that. So life marched on for the show's parents, John Show and Hazel Whitehead now, who lost their only daughter on December 20th, 1991, but remains painfully unchanged. So they'll never get over it. Divorced from John Show, which I think they were already divorced at the time. At the time of the murder, Whitehead, now 60, remarried 10 years ago from this reading, so not too long. I think I didn't get the date of that. She works at a local outlet store. She has stayed in some condition with condemnation. I'm just gonna leave that out. Despite the murder, it is the spot of the happiest memories with her. So she still remember her daughter. She said that she would not consider leaving it. Whitehead feels her daughter's presence there. She said when her television is set and vacuum cleaner switched on by themselves on a light flicker. So she's always. It makes you. I'm having trouble reading this. Allergies, I guess. It makes you more comfortable to think that she's nearby. She said, "I know technically she's in heaven, but sometimes I think she's saying, 'Hi, mom. I'm still here and I'm watching out for you.'" Shosik retired from, retired from his job working at a farm machinery manufacturer a few years ago, but then got called back to work. So he's working now. He enjoys his grandchildren, but because they had kids after, thinks about the grandchildren that he will never had. He speaks to others about his lost loved ones and hosts annual candlelight services for them. To most people, he says he will always be simply Laura Show's father. And there you go. There's the murder of Laura Show. Hopefully, my mush mouth and babbling through it didn't confuse you too much. But this is the first case that I actually say that I don't know. I don't. All the evidence and the way she changed her story constantly definitely shows that Lisa Michelle Lambert did it. But it also shows that Lawrence Junkin and Tabitha Buck had played a big part of it. But you think maybe because of the dating they did, and because Laura was going to say that Buck actually raped her, and they weren't going to file charges. And then one point, oh, and I failed to mention this, but Lisa Michelle actually attacked her one time when she was at work, where she slammed her head against the door, slapped her around, and that's when right before that, the murder just happened. So with all that, maybe Youngkin actually told her, used that as a excuse why they want to get out her picture before the sexual assault came up, and because Lisa Michelle Lambert was already making accusations about wanting to kill her, because during that incident, she says, "If anything happened with my baby, I will kill you." She talked about cutting her throat and everything. So maybe he saw this opportunity to get rid of this. And what I would like to know is, while this was all going on, what was the connection? Because Tabitha Buck just kind of showed up. It was always Laura Show, Lisa Michelle Lambert, and Lawrence Youngkin. But Tabitha, maybe this was another woman that Lawrence Youngkin was trying to hook up with, and they were trying to get Lisa Michelle out of the picture. So I would like to know. Here's what I'd like to know. I don't know how I would find this out. If anybody could find out, it'd be amazing. But what was their connection when he got out of jail? Did they commute? Are they together now? Maybe makes me wonder. I'm not saying that Lisa Michelle did not do this, but I wonder if she actually played as big as of a role as the state's saying she did. But either way, she's in New Jersey jail right now, prison. She got transferred over there, and Youngkin's still living in Pennsylvania, Lancaster County. I don't know where Tabitha Buck's at right now, but they're out of jail. And the only big person who's out is Hazel Show and John Show, who lost their only daughter. And well, there you go. There's the story of the murder of Laura Show. Hopefully, you enjoyed me to tell this story. And I'm surprised I looked this up and I cannot find it on no podcast. I've seen some few independent podcasts who've done it, and on a couple YouTube channels. Of course, Dateline did about an hour and a half show on it. If you want to go listen, watch that, you can. There's more interviewing. I probably left some things out where they had in it. I try my best to do as much research as I can on these episodes. But if you like that, please go rate and review. If you like me telling others, to help me grow this thing, so I'm not just, my wife's getting tired of me. She likes the show, but she's wondering when am I gonna make some money off of this. Something gonna come in, but I enjoy telling. If I don't, I don't. I'm doing it for her. But if you do feel like you want to throw a couple bucks my way, as little as $1, you could go to Patreon, and hopefully pretty soon I'm gonna start doing some, extra bonus content there. And then also you could PayPal me at truckstopmurder.com at gmail. Truckstopmurder at gmail.com. There you go. That's at the PayPal if you want to do that. I'm also buying me a cup of coffee, or buy me a beer at that website. And you can email me at truckstopmurder at gmail.com. And also, mainly, if you don't do none of that stuff, just rate and review me, and wherever you listen to, join my YouTube channel. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers on there, so I actually go live on YouTube at my different locations. So once I'm there, I can interact with you people, with you fine young people, your folks. But I can't do that without 1,000 subscribers. So please help me on that. Share with your friends. And there you go, another story. Also, TikTok, don't forget, I'm going to start doing that. Right now it's Gary Howard 6886, but I'm going to change it to sceneries, cemeteries, and sites if that's not taken. YouTube, join me there, Truck Stop Murder. And I have a Facebook page at Truck Stop Murder. Go and join me there. And as always, we'll listen in this story with, sad for Laurie Slow's family. But you know what? With these three idiots, like I always say, you can't fix stupid, but you can sure numb it with the 2x4. I'm out of here.